I'm Alan Percy, CMO at TelcoBridges,
I'm Andrew Ward, CEO of Award Consulting.
and welcome to Telecom Talk, a regular series of check-ins discussing important issues and events in the telecommunications industry. And in this session, we're going to talk about our visit to Cloud Connections 2024 in St. Petersburg, Florida. So, Andrew, let's get started with maybe some highlights of the event.
Yeah, so this is a great conference. We were both there in person, and for me, it's a really valuable event. Partly just due to its size. This seems like maybe not something you would think about that much. It's all about the content, which we'll get into. But this event's maybe a couple of hundred people, maybe 300, 200, something like that, and just having a fairly intimate event like that allows you to really, get to talk to everyone there, get to, connect with the people who are already there, and it makes it much more of a community event rather than kind of a huge conference. So that was really good. And yeah, it was a really valuable content and really well run, and obviously in a beautiful location by the beach, which always helps. And yeah, you'd asked what stood out to me. I think this perhaps won't come as a surprise to anybody who's living in the early 2020s, but there seem to be an awful lot of sessions about AI. I don't know what this
Yes,
AI
there
thing
is.
is, Alan, but yeah, did you count up how many talks we had on that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I went through the agenda and I counted four different events that are allocated one way or another to talking about AI. Ranging from a presentation by Mike Tesler, the ex-CEO from BroadSoft, who's got a lot of experience and insight that he shared. A session from Microsoft a couple of sessions actually from Microsoft on what their plan and strategy is for either adopting AI or how AI will be adopted as part of a business cycle. And then a session on using AI kind of in your everyday business actions and specifically in marketing facets. So it was pretty interesting, and I agree with that. That size of the conference, what's nice about that size conference is that you'll very likely know probably half the people. At least in my case, I probably knew about half the people, but I got to talk to almost everybody, and that's one of the real treats.
Yep, absolutely. I fully agree. So I picked out, a couple of the sessions that I saw that I thought were worth digging into. If it's okay with you, I'm gonna pick up actually the opening presentation was
Hmm.
by Clark Peterson, who's I think head of the CCA, and Matt Townend from Cavell Group, who's an analyst, and they'd done a survey of the membership of the Cloud Communications Alliance, which perhaps we should pause to say Cloud Communications Alliance is an industry group which originally was, I think, basically the BroadSoft users group, but it's a bunch of companies that are selling UCaaS and CCaaS, and they're coming out of that BroadSoft background, but definitely on the business communications piece is where they're focused. Um, but yeah, Clark and Matt did a presentation where they presented all this survey data, highlighting different things that the members saw as important. Alan, were you able to attend that presentation? Do you remember anything in
I
particular?
was, I was, yeah, and it not remarkably different from the year past, but you can see there's been some progress in some of the attitudes in migration to the cloud. I think that's probably one of the most important things that jumped out of that session is there was serious pushback 3, 4, 5 years ago to migrating to the cloud from both service providers and also specifically some of the enterprise applications, contact center and enterprise. There was a lot of pushback years ago, and much of that has been tamped down, I think, by proof of success.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they had a thing talking about, what are the trends that are changing. And within the industry, a couple of things stood out to me. One was that more people are considering the idea of white labeling their product, so offering it
Hmm.
available to sell under somebody else's brand. And even more than that, there is a desire among this market to sell to bigger businesses. And I think historically, a lot of the UCaaS world has been small business, SMBs. I think 10, 20 seats has been kind of fairly typical in terms of the average size. But they're very much targeting, okay, can we now sell to the enterprise? Can we go upstream? And so
Hmm.
I don't know whether they're going to succeed, but that's the goal of a lot of the businesses there as they looked at, how their business strategy was going to evolve.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that much of the trends. I think if anything, we're probably a little disappointed in the pace of change over the last 3 or 4 years, but it's definitely we're here at this point now. And now I think a large chunk of the contact center space is looking at cloud, and of course service providers are beginning to offer things like CPaaS and other services like that are all cloud based. So the migration is on the way, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. There was yeah, there's a I think on the second day there was some talks by Microsoft, which we'll maybe get into in a little bit, where they were very much pushing the move to cloud by telecoms. Which actually one of the things that was interesting in this first talk, they had a survey saying which services do you provide? And the top ones were the ones you'd expect, UCaaS, CRM integration, call recording, etc. But the ones that were right at the bottom were SD-WAN and security services, which are very much kind of maybe more in the MSP space. It's
Yeah.
like if you're an MSP, then you're going to get into the people's whole network and help them with all of their IT. And certainly the people there today were not really that excited about doing these services, which I thought was interesting because when you hear about Microsoft's strategy, they are very much saying to the UCaaS and CCaaS providers, hey, we want you to sell Teams as a small part of the MSP offerings that you have. So Microsoft's messaging is very much towards the telecom providers, as an MSP, and that's really not what they are today. So I don't know if maybe they will be, if Microsoft will force them to be, or if maybe Microsoft's not understanding what this market wants in terms of who they are as a business. But that was an interesting tension I saw there.
Yeah, yeah, it was a little bit of a disconnect, and I sense that too. That Microsoft in their acquisition of Metaswitch, they kind of have an agenda now, and not everybody's buying it. I think one of the issues I think we're starting to sense is that some of our partners who are at the event, Alianza, Crescendo, for example, they're starting to pick up on some of the scraps of the migration to the cloud that's starting to gain momentum. And the side effect of that is that there's actual implementation starting to happen, and they're not, and they're service providers that are not afraid to make that change.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And obviously, any kind of change of platform is a scary thing, but when faced with a future that is all about Teams from Microsoft, I don't think that's super appealing for a UCaaS provider. I fundamentally, I think a lot of them are engaging with Teams. There were some stats showing that I think 55% of the providers had a direct routing offering, and 22% were doing Operator Connect, or thereabouts. And so they are engaging with Teams, but fundamentally, Teams is basically a PBX. If you're a UCaaS provider, yeah, Teams is like a cloud-hosted PBX, and if you do direct routing or Operator Connect, you're providing SIP trunks to it, just like you might have done with a 3CX PBX or a Mitel PBX back in the day. And we've spent the last 20 years talking about how amazing hosted PBX was because you get so much more revenue and you get monthly recurring revenue. And now Microsoft wants us to roll back and go back to the old business model, which is obviously worse for the UCaaS providers. They're obviously having success in selling to businesses. That Teams is a good thing, but it's not good for the UCaaS providers. And yeah, like I said, Microsoft's pitch is that you can become an MSP and make the money up in other ways by selling other services. But yeah, and that's a good strategy for those who want to do that, but it's not the strategy people have today in many cases.
Right, right, right. So moving on a little bit, I think I did want to dig in a little bit and talk about this adoption of AI in the service provider community and where it seems to fall. I think there was discussions of a number of different buckets as to where AI started to fit into the service provider network, and some of them were just I will call it consumer use cases, right? It was things like transcription and conference calls and functions like that. But there were a few that jumped out at me I thought were particularly really interesting. And one of them is fraud detection. Fraud detection and call routing management, I think, are all kind of bundled up in a space where an AI engine and machine learning would learn where calls need to go, and then also detect which one of them are fraudulent. And then I thought was pretty interesting was the concept of potentially self-healing networks, that the network would detect outages and would automatically reroute traffic based on that, but it would be AI engines that help make those decisions as opposed to like flow charts, hard coded tables and things like that, which is what we're doing today. So those are really, really fascinating potential integrations for AI into telecom networks. At least that was my perspective when I came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. On the fraud detection, I've trashed Microsoft a little bit in this, but one of the cool things they mentioned with AI, and I'm trying to find the slide to tell me the name of it, but they were talking about a an application. Here we go. Azure Operator Call Protection, which basically the telco kind of has this AI engine in the middle of the call. And what it does is it's listening to the call. And if it identifies that the call is, some kind of scam,
Mm-hmm.
then it will kind of insert itself into the middle of the call somehow, and protect the user. So you imagine your, aging relative is getting a scam call from somebody trying to steal a social security number or get the bank account information. Then the network operator using this tool from Microsoft can notice that this is happening and say,
Mm-hmm.
hang on a second, we think this is a scammer. Please don't give them your credit card information.
Right,
And
right.
that's
Yep.
a pretty cool use case that they highlighted in one of their presentations.
Yeah, I thought that was exactly where I thought it made a good use case for that. So, and quite a few other discussions too. I think uh, you know, eh, we joked, I think, at the end of the conference about, oh, we went to an AA conference and we accidentally talked about telecom because it did kind of take things over because it is kind of the new shiny object. And I saw a great little meme. I'll see if we can put it into our little video here, but a little meme of a guy working on a presentation and his coworker says to him, "Hey, you remember that pitch deck we had? He says, yeah, just replace, let's say, we replace all the instances of crypto with AI and we should be good."
Yeah,
So
it definitely feels like that these days.
yeah, yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, I'm interested to get your thoughts a little bit. As I,
Hmm.
hear Microsoft talk about AI, Amazon talk about AI, if you are a large enterprise that has lots of data, then there's lots of interesting stuff you can do with AI, and it's, potentially quite powerful, but there's a significant effort, right? You've got to still gather all the data and you've got to make sense of it, and then you've got to, teach your AI engines, what to do with it, and so on and so forth. So there's potential for a huge enterprise to get some outsized benefit from the new technology. But for anyone smaller than that, you know, I don't think your own data is really, I don't think you have the scale, or at least my take is, I'm not sure you have the scale to kind of really do all of this stuff in-house. And instead, it's much more going to be just take the off-the-shelf tools to do simple stuff for specific use cases. And obviously, ChatGPT being an example. Anyone can use ChatGPT to brainstorm for you or to, help write some content or improve some content. But there's not the kind of, take all your business data and do amazing stuff with it, which is, what Microsoft's talking about because they want lots of use of Azure. Um, I don't really see that as being a compelling use case below a certain size. Do you have any
Hmm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think one of the issues with AI and just with machine learning in general is you need a lot of data to train it, and training an AI engine and the machine learning part of it is not something that just happens overnight. You need massive amounts of data. I think for it to begin to start to pick out patterns and be able to make predictions and to be able to make decisions. And because remember, a big piece of machine learning is telling it when it gets it wrong, so that it starts to learn what's right and what's wrong. So not I don't think any one enterprise, frankly, unless it's maybe like a huge insurance company or something like that, would have enough data in their call traffic. You really need to do is go a network wide collection of data. So I could see a large, a service provider, medium or large service provider trying to take some of the data that they're seeing on their network and run it through a machine learning algorithm to see if it can come up with some predictions or start to recognize some patterns out of that. So I think the scope and the size of the data set, I think is I don't think people understand. You can't just give it a couple of days worth of calls on an enterprise and say, so where can I save money? That's not enough.
Yeah, and I think that speaks. Actually, there was I mentioned this in a short chat we did during the conference, but in Michael Tesla's presentation, I think it was, um, you know, he was highlighting the fact that AI has the potential to kind of grow exponentially in terms of its capabilities and all the different things that can be done with it. But we as people are going to struggle to keep up with all of these new features because we just
Right.
have the same number of hours in our day as we had before, or well, maybe a little bit more because AI is helping us with
Yeah.
some tasks. But I think a huge challenge for organizations of all sizes is going to be to actually implement AI in a useful way in any kind of timely manner. I mean, development cycles for new features for most, product vendors are not quick, right? It takes a while to design something, to build it, to test it, to release it. And if AI is kind of rapidly evolving all the time, it's going to be hard for any of us to kind of keep up with that and provide the
Right.
latest and greatest features.
Right. It kind of leads us to a strategy comment that one of the things we've been working on is recognizing that the AI algorithms and the technology that come from AI, they tend to come from a lot of these smaller startups. And as a result of it, it's going to take a while to be able to integrate those features into some of the larger soft switch platforms. But a service provider may say, "Hey, I would like to be able to let's just say do speech to text. I would like to have a AI powered speech to text so people can do transcriptions of their calls. Like I could sell that to a lawyer's office, easy, right? You finish the telephone call, hang up, and you get an email with a transcript in it. To do that would require you'd have to wait a long time for the maker of your particular soft switch or UC platform to integrate that kind of feature in. Whereas using technologies like TelcoBridges Pro SBC, we could integrate that algorithm into a call flow without having to wait for the soft switch to be able to make that implementation. So I kind of walked away from the conference with this light bulb on, aha, this is the opportunity because AI is changing so fast and is evolving so quick that having the ability to be able to integrate these algorithms into the call flows without having to wait for the soft switch vendors or the UC platform to integrate it, I think gives some interesting opportunities for us. So I'm excited to explore that some more, and would love to hear from people about they think that's a good idea. Reach out to us. I'd like to get bounce it off of people and see what happens.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think that's a good insight that finding integration points to make it easy to put third-party apps into a platform. Because I think a lot of people, you kind of sit there and wait for your main platform vendor to provide new features. And
Yep,
sometimes that happens quickly, sometimes that happens slowly, sometimes they provide new features, but not the ones you want. And
true.
so, yeah, things like the SBC or just, API options that allow you to add in new features or integrate with other platforms easily are probably key in providing the feature set that you want to your users.
Right, right, exactly, exactly.
Um,
Um, yeah, I did want to just spend a minute to talk about that session I sat through. I don't know if you want which one of the breakouts you went to, but I went to the session that Angela Levitt hosted on mastering marketing with AI, and it was fascinating because one of the things we've been doing this year has been a strategic effort within our marketing team is starting to use some of the AI marketing tools. So, for example, editing some of the videos, editing graphics, helping proofread content, these kinds of things. And we've seen some really amazing tools pop up in the marketplace. A lot of them are kind of rough around the edges, but they're a lot better than doing all of this all manually. And it was interesting to sort of compare notes with some of the other people in the room of what they're trying and what they're doing from adopting AI in a marketing world. So which one of the breakouts did you end up sitting through? Do you know? Do you remember?
it's possible I skipped all the breakouts and just talked to
Okay.
people in the hallway at that moment. So I didn't attend the session, but I'm eager to learn. I know
Yep.
I've experimented a little bit with this in terms of AI marketing tools. I found some video creation tool where I think you could give it I think you could give it an article and it would create a video version of that article.
Oh,
Um,
really?
which
Wow.
yeah, and it kind of took
Yeah.
out some of the key phrases and then it kind of had some background music and there was animation and
Yeah.
it was I mean it very quickly produced something, but
Right.
was it high
Right.
quality? Yeah,
Yeah.
you probably want some work to improve it. So yeah, I'm
There's
curious to hear
actually,
what you learned
uh,
in the session.
yeah, there was actually a lot of discussion. Probably, I bet half the session we talked about. AI is a great way to get started with something. To give you maybe, like you said, maybe a suggestion or some brainstorming content maybe give you a rough draft for an article or for a piece. But it's really, really important that at this point that somebody goes through it, checks it for accuracy, right? Because these AI engines are known to hallucinate, which is where they make stuff up, and also fact check it, right? And then get into making it sound like a human wrote it, because that's one of the weird idiosyncrasies right now with a lot of AI engines, is that they produce perfect English, which is not typically what people write in. They use colloquialisms, or they use words that the AI engines have not mastered yet, and so I think they gave one example was the word devolve or something like that. I think it's kind of a word that the AI agents had picked up on, and people are like, "What? Who uses that word?" That kind of thing. So anyway, so the point was, I think out of it all is that there's still it can shorten the development of material by speeding up the initial rough draft, but it's your job as a marketing professional to dig in a little bit deeper after that and start to use that and proof it and fact check it before you produce final content. Because everyone hates these emails that come out of some of these shops that are just completely AI written gibberish that gets shoved in your inbox or in your LinkedIn stream, and it just enough. All right. So
Yeah, I mean, and I have to admit, when ChatGPT first came out, my entire business, I would argue, was largely built on, the fact that we have a strong email newsletter that people read,
right,
and people enjoy reading. And so I was looking at this thinking, yeah, does this threaten my entire existence? My job is writing the emails, right, to a large extent.
sure, sure,
Um,
sure.
but then, yeah, you ask it to do some of these things, and you read it, and you're like, yeah, A, this is wrong, and B, it doesn't have any character or personality anymore.
Right, right,
And
right, right.
so I've actually stopped using it even to draft stuff. I tried it like once or twice, and then I was like, no, I'm just rather write it
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
I do use it to brainstorm titles. I find ChatGPT very helpful for that. Any kind of brainstorming thing, any kind of, hey, give me a fun wordplay around these topics. It can do
Yep.
that really well. Ask it for 10 ideas. And so I definitely use it for that. But in terms of the core content, I just find it better to just write my own now. And it's, yeah, I'd rather have it be my personality, which people, know about, whether they like it or not, I don't know, but I'd rather it be real than be the bland ChatGPT content.
Well, the key thing is to get that Andrew Ward patented sense of humor and then do it right
Yeah,
into
apparently the AI
one
hasn't
of your
read enough of my
newsletters.
articles to
So
copy it. So yeah,
yeah. Well, hey, listen, we're getting on our time limit here, so I want to thank you for jumping on this call here today. We're, like you said, we're going to try to do these on a periodic basis, and we look forward to publishing some more. We'll find some more topics that we can share as we move along. So thanks again, Andrew.
not a problem. And if anyone wants to find out more information about us, then you can sign up for the Award Consulting newsletter at www.awardconsulting.com/newsletter. And if you want to find out more about Telco Bridges,
Yeah, of course, you can find us at TelcoBridges.com. And don't forget to click the thumbs up and also hit subscribe. We'd love to have you as a long-term listener to the Telco Bridges channel. So very good. Thanks again. Have a great day.
wonderful. Thanks a lot. Take care, Alan.